Thunder roared through the fog-shrouded hills, where shadows whispered secrets of the dead, and a single scream pierced the Halloween night at the cursed inn. Blood stained the ancient floorboards, and Hercule Poirot's keen eyes glinted with suspicion. Who among the guests hid the killer's blade? Welcome to Murder at the Haunted Inn, a Halloween case for Poirot. Grab a cup of tea, take a seat, and settle in for this chilling tale. If you're hooked and enjoying the suspense, hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Chapter 1. The Stormy Arrival. The carriage jolted to a halt amidst the relentless downpour, and Hercule Poirot stepped out with the precision of a man who detested disorder, even in nature's fury. The Blackthorn Inn loomed before him like a sentinel from a forgotten era, its jagged turrets piercing the stormy sky, ivy-cloaked walls dripping with rain that seemed to weep for the souls it had harboured over centuries. This was no ordinary invitation. Sir Reginald Hawthorne, a collector of the arcane and a man whose fortune stemmed from dubious antiquities dealings, had summoned Poirot for a Halloween retreat. "Come, my friend," the letter had read. "Witness the spirits of the past at the most haunted inn in England. Seances, mysteries and merriment await." Poirot, ever drawn to the puzzles of human nature disguised as the supernatural, had accepted, though his rational mind dismissed ghosts as mere figments born of fear and imagination. Yet, as lightning forked across the heavens, illuminating the inn's weathered sign, swinging wildly on rusted hinges, he felt an inexplicable chill that had nothing to do with the cold. The door creaked open before he could knock, revealing Elias Grimshaw, the innkeeper, whose face resembled a carved pumpkin left too long in the frost. Gaunt cheeks, sunken eyes shadowed by perpetual vigilance, and a mouth twisted in what might have been a smile or a grimace. "Monsieur Poirot," Grimshaw rasped, his voice carrying the gravel of old secrets. "The storm brought you just in time. The others have arrived, and the night promises entertainment." He took Poirot's dripping coat with bony fingers, leading him into the foyer where the scent of aged wood, beeswax candles, and something faintly metallic hung in the air. The inn's interior was a labyrinth of dark panelling and flickering gas lamps, portraits of stern ancestors glaring from the walls as if judging every newcomer. Poirot's keen eyes, sharp as a detective's scalpel, took in the details. Cobwebs artfully or neglectfully draped in corners, a grandfather clock ticking ominously in the shadows, and a grand staircase spiralling upward like a serpent ready to strike. Sir Reginald Hawthorne burst into the foyer from an adjoining parlour, his rotund figure clad in a velvet smoking jacket embroidered with occult symbols, a monocle perched precariously on his nose. "Poirot, old chap, delighted you've made it through that infernal gale. Come, meet the fellow adventurers in our ghostly escapade." He clapped Poirot on the back with enthusiasm that bordered on mania, guiding him toward a circle of armchairs arranged around a massive stone fireplace. The flames danced hungrily, casting elongated shadows that twisted like spectres on the walls. First was Lady Victoria Ashford, a vision of faded elegance in a crimson gown that hugged her still youthful curves, her silver hair piled high and adorned with a raven feather fascinator. She extended a gloved hand, her eyes, dark and calculating, lingering a moment too long. "Monsieur Poirot, your reputation precedes you. I trust you'll unravel any enigmas that arise this weekend." Her voice was honeyed, but Poirot detected the undercurrent of bitterness, whispers of a scandalous divorce and lost fortunes that had driven her to Sir Reginald's circle. Beside her sat Dr. Elias Thorne, a tall, angular man with wire-rimmed spectacles and a tweed suit that screamed academia. He nursed a brandy, his expression one of polite disdain. "Superstitions and spooks," he muttered, not bothering to rise. "I'm here to debunk this nonsense once and for all. The inn's hauntings are nothing but drafts, acoustics, and mass hysteria. Psychological phenomena I've studied extensively. Poirot nodded politely, noting the doctor's clenched jaw and the way his fingers drummed impatiently on the armrest, as if itching to dismantle the very atmosphere. Then there was Amelia Blackwood, the young heiress, whose wide blue eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Barely out of her teens, she clutched a locket at her throat, her simple wool dress a stark contrast to the other's finery. "Oh, Mr. Poirot, isn't it thrilling? Papa sent me here to broaden my horizons, but I've read all about the Blackthorn's ghosts. They say the spirit of old innkeeper Josiah Blackthorn, betrayed and murdered on a Halloween night in 1723, still wanders, seeking revenge on the unfaithful." Her voice trembled slightly, betraying a fear she tried to mask with enthusiasm. Sir Reginald poured Poirot a glass of sherry from a crystal decanter, the liquid glinting like liquid gold in the firelight. "Ah yes, the legend. Josiah was poisoned by his wife and her lover, or so the tales go. His ghost has claimed victims every All Hallows Eve since, lights extinguishing, doors slamming, and worse. But fear not. I've prepared a proper séance tonight to commune with him. Candles, Ouija boards from my collection, the works." He chuckled, but his eyes darted nervously to the staircase, where a portrait of Josiah hung. A dour man, with a noose-like cravat and eyes that seemed to follow the room's occupants. The group settled into conversation as the storm raged outside, rain lashing the leaded windows like accusing fingers. Lady Victoria regaled them with a tarot reading from her deck, drawing the Tower card with a dramatic flourish. "Upheaval and sudden disaster," she intoned, her gaze flicking to Sir Reginald. "Beware, my dear host, for secrets buried deep may rise tonight." Dr. Thorne scoffed, launching into a lecture on pareidolia, the brain's tendency to see patterns in randomness, and how the inn's creaks were structural decay, not poltergeists. Amelia listened raptly, occasionally glancing at the windows where branches clawed like skeletal hands. Poirot, sipping his sherry, observed silently, his little grey cells cataloguing every nuance. The way Sir Reginald's hand trembled slightly when mentioning the séance, Lady Victoria's subtle touch on the host's arm, Dr. Thorne's dismissive glances at Grimshaw, who hovered in the background, polishing silver with unnatural focus, and Amelia's fidgeting with her locket, which bore an inscription Poirot couldn't yet read. The innkeeper interjected occasionally, his tales adding fuel to the fire. "Seen 'em myself, I have. Josiah's shade, pacing the halls on stormy nights like this. Last Halloween, a guest vanished for hours, swearing he was dragged to the cellars by cold hands." As pre-dinner cocktails flowed, the atmosphere thickened with a blend of skepticism and thrill. Sir Reginald proposed a toast to the Blackthorn Inn and its eternal mysteries. "May the veil between worlds thin, and may we all survive the night unscathed." Glasses clinked, but the merriment was short-lived. A sudden gust extinguished several candles, plunging corners into darkness, and a low moan echoed from the upper floors. Wind through cracks, or something more? Amelia gasped, clutching her locket tighter. Lady Victoria's eyes narrowed. Dr. Thorne rolled his eyes, and Sir Reginald laughed it off as the house settling. Poirot, however, straightened, his moustache twitching. "The order of things is disrupted already, mes amis, but let us proceed to dinner. Perhaps the ghosts prefer an audience with full stomachs." Dinner was served in the grand dining hall, a long oak table laden with roast pheasant, candied yams evoking autumn's harvest, and mulled wine steaming in flagons. Grimshaw and his silent wife, a wraith-like woman who spoke not a word, attended silently, their movements efficient yet eerie. Conversation turned to personal motives for attending. Sir Reginald boasted of his latest acquisition, a cursed amulet said to summon spirits. Lady Victoria hinted at seeking closure for a family tragedy tied to the occult. Dr. Thorne aimed to publish a paper exposing the inn's fraud. Amelia confessed a fascination born from loneliness after her parents' death. Poirot shared little, content to listen, probing gently with questions that revealed cracks. Sir Reginald's debts hidden behind his bravado. Lady Victoria's rivalry with a rival collector. Dr. Thorne's grant depending on this debunking, and Amelia's inheritance contingent on maturing through such experiences. Midway through the meal, the lights flickered violently, thunder booming like cannon fire. A chill draft snaked through the room, extinguishing the chandelier's candles one by one. In the sudden gloom, illuminated only by the fireplace's glow, a scream shattered the air. From upstairs, raw and terrified. Glasses rattled, forks dropped. What was that? Amelia whimpered, her face pale. Sir Reginald rose unsteadily. Likely a servant, or the wind. Grimshaw, check it out! But the innkeeper was already vanishing up the stairs, lantern in hand. Poirot pushed back his chair, his mind racing. No, my friends, this is no mere storm's trick. The game has begun. As the group huddled, whispers of fear mingling with the rain's relentless tattoo, Poirot's instincts screamed that human malice lurked behind the supernatural facade. The scream hung in the air like a portent, drawing them toward the unknown. With the inn's secrets stirring and alliances forming in the shadows, the true unraveling awaited. Stay tuned for Chapter 2, where the horror reveals itself and Poirot's investigation ignites. Chapter 2. The Body in the Tower Room. The scream still echoed in Hercule Poirot's mind as he led the charge up the Blackthorn Inn's creaking staircase, his polished shoes tapping a steady rhythm against the worn oak. The air grew colder with each step, the flickering light of Grimshaw's lantern casting jagged shadows on the walls, where faded tapestries depicted scenes of betrayal and doom. The group followed close behind, their breaths visible in the chill, their faces a mix of dread and curiosity. Lady Victoria clutched her shawl, her composure fraying at the edges. Dr. Thorne gripped a brass candlestick as if it were a weapon. Amelia's hands trembled, her locket now tucked tightly against her chest. And Sir Reginald huffed, muttering about damned theatrics. Grimshaw, ahead with his lantern, moved with a strange urgency, as if he knew exactly where the cry had come from. They reached the second-floor landing, where a narrow corridor stretched into darkness, lined with locked doors and tarnished brass nameplates. The innkeeper paused before a door at the far end, marked Tower Room, its frame warped and paint peeling like dead skin. "It came from here," Grimshaw whispered, his voice barely audible over the storm's howl. He fumbled with a ring of keys, his hand shaking, not from fear, Poirot noted, but something else entirely. The door groaned open, revealing a circular chamber lit by a single guttering candle on a rickety table. The room was sparse, a four-poster bed with moth-eaten curtains, a cracked mirror reflecting distorted shadows, and a high window rattling under the storm's assault. But it was the figure slumped in the corner that froze them all. A woman. Her body twisted unnaturally, blood pooling beneath her like a crimson halo. Amelia gasped, stumbling back into Dr. Thorne, who steadied her with a grim expression. "Good God!" Sir Reginald muttered, his monocle dropping to his chest. Lady Victoria's hand flew to her mouth, but her eyes were sharp, scanning the scene. Poirot stepped forward, his movements deliberate, his gaze dissecting every detail. The victim was Mrs. Clara Grimshaw, the innkeeper's silent wife, her pale face frozen in a rictus of terror, her throat slashed with surgical precision. A silver candlestick, identical to the one Dr. Thorne held, lay beside her, its base slick with blood. The metallic tang Poirot had faintly noticed earlier now overwhelmed the room, mingling with the musty scent of decay. "Monsieur Grimshaw," Poirot said, his voice calm but commanding. "When did you last see your wife?" The innkeeper's eyes darted to the body, then away, his jaw tightening. "An hour ago, maybe less. She was clearing the dining table, said nothing as usual." His tone was flat, but Poirot caught the flicker of something, grief or perhaps guilt. Dr. Thorne knelt beside the body, his scientific curiosity overriding decorum. Clean-cut, deep. Whoever did this was strong and quick. No defensive wounds. She didn't see it coming. He glanced at Poirot, his skepticism momentarily replaced by unease. "This isn't some ghost story, Poirot. This is murder." Poirot nodded, his little grey cells whirring. He examined the room. No footprints marred the dusty floor save their own. No windows were forced, and the door's lock appeared intact. Yet a small detail caught his eye. A single pearl earring, glinting near the bed, its twin missing. He pocketed it discreetly, his mind already cataloguing the women in the group. Lady Victoria wore rubies, Amelia simple studs, but Clara had worn none at dinner. "Curieux," he murmured, filing it away. The storm raged outside, lightning illuminating the corpse's lifeless eyes, and for a moment the room seemed to pulse with an unseen presence, though Poirot dismissed it as imagination. Sir Reginald, regaining his bluster, demanded, "Well, Poirot, what now? We can't just stand here gawking." Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. "We secure the scene and we question. Everyone returns to the parlour. No one leaves. No one touches anything. The truth lies in the details, and I, Hercule Poirot, will find it." Amelia's voice broke the tension, small and trembling. "But what if it's Josiah, the ghost? They say he kills on Halloween." Dr. Thorne snorted, but even he looked rattled, his candlestick now lowered. Lady Victoria's lips curled slightly, as if amused by the notion, but her fingers twisted her shawl tighter. Grimshaw, still staring at his wife's body, muttered, "This place is cursed, always has been." Poirot ignored the superstition, directing Grimshaw to lock the tower room door behind them. As they descended to the parlour, the detective's mind raced through possibilities. Clara's silence at dinner. Had it been fear or something else? Grimshaw's odd demeanour suggested more than a grieving husband. And the earring. Whose was it? And how did it end up in a locked room with a dead woman? The group settled uneasily in the parlour, the fire now a weak flicker against the growing darkness. Poirot stood by the mantel, his eyes moving from face to face, searching for the telltale signs of deceit. The storm showed no signs of relenting, trapping them in the inn with a killer among them. As the clock struck midnight, its chimes heavy with foreboding, Poirot knew the night was far from over. The murder was fresh, the clues were sparse, but the game of deduction had begun. Stay tuned for Chapter 3, where Poirot begins his interrogations and the inn's secrets deepen. Chapter 3. Shadows of Suspicion. The parlour of the Blackthorn Inn felt smaller now, its heavy drapes and flickering firelight closing in like a trap. Hercule Poirot stood by the mantel, his sharp eyes scanning the group huddled in their armchairs, each face a mask of unease. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and fear, the distant storm rumbling like an accusation. Clara Grimshaw's murder had shattered the evening's pretense of festive intrigue, and now, with the tower room locked and her body cooling upstairs, Poirot knew the killer sat among them. He adjusted his cuffs, a gesture of calm control, and began his work. "Mes amis," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "A crime has been committed, and the truth lies in what you saw, what you heard, and what you choose to conceal. Let us begin." He started with Sir Reginald, whose jovial facade had cracked, his hands fidgeting with the occult symbols on his jacket. "Monsieur, you were the host. Tell me of your movements after dinner." Sir Reginald cleared his throat, his voice unsteady. "I was in the library, checking my spirit board collection. Clara brought me a brandy. Must have been 10 minutes before that scream. I didn't see her after that." His eyes darted to the side, avoiding Poirot's gaze. The detective noted the hesitation, the too quick answer. Next, he turned to Lady Victoria, who sat poised but tense, her crimson gown a stark contrast to her pallor. "I retired to my room briefly to freshen up," she said smoothly. "The storm was giving me a headache. I heard nothing until that dreadful cry." Her words were polished, but Poirot caught the faint tremor in her gloved fingers, betraying nerves. "Dr. Thorne, still clutching his candlestick, spoke with brusque impatience. I was in the dining hall, finishing my wine and jotting notes for my paper. I saw Clara clear the plates. Then she vanished, presumably to the kitchen. I stayed put until the scream. His tone was defiant, but his knuckles whitened around the candlestick, as if it anchored him. Amelia, curled in her chair, spoke last, her voice barely above a whisper. I went to the powder room near the foyer. I was washing my hands when I heard it. I ran back to the dining hall, and that's when we all went upstairs. Her eyes were wide, but Poirot noticed she avoided mentioning her locket, which she now tucked inside her dress. Elias Grimshaw lingered by the door, his lantern set on a side table, its light casting his hollow face in stark relief. "And you, Monsieur Grimshaw?" Poirot pressed. The innkeeper's shoulders slumped. "I was in the cellar, fetching another bottle of wine. Clara was in the kitchen when I last saw her. I didn't hear no scream till I came up and you lot were already moving." His voice was gruff, but his eyes kept flicking to the staircase, as if expecting his wife's ghost to descend. Poirot filed away the inconsistencies. Clara seen in multiple places, yet no one saw her ascend to the tower room, and the earring, still in his pocket, nagged at him. He paced slowly, the floorboards groaning under his measured steps. Let us reconstruct. The scream came at approximately 10:30. Dinner ended at 10. In that half hour, someone entered the tower room, committed murder, and left without trace, except for one small clue. He didn't mention the earring, letting the group stew in their own suspicions. Instead, he asked, "Did anyone notice anything unusual before the scream? A sound, a movement." Silence hung heavy, broken only by a crackle from the fire. Then Amelia spoke, her voice shaking. I thought I saw a shadow in the corridor near the powder room. It moved fast toward the stairs, but I couldn't see who it was." Dr. Thorne scoffed. "Shadows, Miss Blackwood. Your imagination is as overactive as this inn's reputation." But Poirot held up a hand. "Every detail matters, mademoiselle. Describe this shadow." "It was tall, maybe a man's shape, but it was gone so quickly," she said, glancing nervously at the others. Sir Reginald shifted uncomfortably, Lady Victoria's lips pursed, and Grimshaw's face remained unreadable. Poirot's mind churned. A shadow could be anyone, or no one, but it was a thread to pull. He turned to the room's details, asking Grimshaw about the tower room's access. "Only 2 keys, the innkeeper said. One on my ring, one kept in the office. No one else could have got in." Yet Poirot knew locked rooms were rarely as secure as they seemed. As the questioning continued, tensions simmered. Lady Victoria accused Dr. Thorne of being too quick to dismiss the supernatural, her tone sharp. "You're so eager to explain everything, Doctor. But can you explain a locked room murder?" Thorne retorted. "I'd wager on human greed over ghostly vengeance any day." Sir Reginald tried to lighten the mood, suggesting a séance to ask Josiah himself, but his laugh was hollow. Amelia shrank further into her chair, while Grimshaw's silence grew heavier, his eyes distant. Poirot observed their interactions, noting alliances and animosities. Lady Victoria's subtle barbs at Sir Reginald, Thorne's disdain for everyone, Amelia's fear, and Grimshaw's guarded demeanour. The clock chimed 1 in the morning, its toll reverberating through the inn. Poirot paused, letting the group feel the weight of the hour. "We are all tired, but the truth does not sleep. I ask you to remain here, together, while I examine the tower room once more. No one leaves until I return." He fixed each with a stare, daring them to object. None did, though their expressions spoke volumes. Defiance, fear, calculation. With a nod to Grimshaw to unlock the door, Poirot ascended alone, the lantern's light his only companion. The storm outside seemed to pulse in rhythm with his thoughts, each flash of lightning a reminder that time was short and the killer was close. The tower room awaited, its secrets locked in blood and shadows. As Poirot prepared to uncover more, the inn's dark history loomed larger, whispering of motives yet to be revealed. Stay tuned for Chapter 4, where Poirot's search yields a startling clue and the group's alibis begin to crumble. Chapter 4. The Hidden Clue. Hercule Poirot ascended the creaking staircase once more, the lantern in his hand casting elongated shadows that danced like phantoms on the walls. The Blackthorn Inn seemed to hold its breath, the storm outside a constant roar that muffled his footsteps. He had left the group in the parlour, their faces etched with a cocktail of anxiety and accusation, each one nursing their secrets like a poisoned chalice. Poirot's mind was a whirlwind of observations. The mismatched alibis, the fleeting glances, the unspoken tensions that simmered beneath the surface. The tower room key turned with a reluctant click in the lock, and as the door swung open, the chill air rushed out, carrying the metallic scent of blood and the faint whisper of decay. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him to preserve the scene, and set the lantern on the rickety table, its flame flickering as if protesting the darkness. The room was as he had left it. Clara Grimshaw's body slumped in the corner, her lifeless eyes staring into eternity, the pool of blood now congealing into a dark stain on the floorboards. Poirot donned a pair of white gloves from his pocket, a habit born of meticulous care, and began his methodical examination. He started with the body itself, kneeling carefully to avoid disturbing the evidence. The slash across her throat was precise, a single deep cut from left to right, suggesting a right-handed assailant who had approached from behind. No signs of struggle, no torn clothing, no defensive marks on her hands. She had been taken by surprise, perhaps by someone she trusted. Her apron pocket yielded a small key, perhaps to the kitchen or a cupboard, but nothing incriminating. Poirot noted her simple attire, a grey dress, sensible shoes, no jewellery except a thin wedding band. The pearl earring he had found earlier didn't match her style. It was too elegant, too refined for a working innkeeper's wife. Moving to the four-poster bed, Poirot inspected the moth-eaten curtains, parting them to reveal a sagging mattress and faded linens. Nothing amiss there, but as he ran his hand along the frame, his fingers brushed against something wedged between the headboard and the wall. A small, leather-bound notebook, its pages yellowed with age. He pulled it free, blowing off a layer of dust, and opened it carefully. The entries were in a cramped, faded script, dated back decades. "Josiah's curse lives on," one read. "Another Halloween, another shadow in the halls." Poirot's eyebrows arched. This could be a diary of past innkeepers, chronicling the supposed hauntings. But flipping to the more recent pages, he found Clara's own handwriting. Sporadic notes on supplies, guest arrivals, and cryptic observations. Sir R argues with V again, secrets in the air. And then, dated that very day, heard whispers in the cellar. Must warn E for Elias. Poirot pocketed the notebook, his little grey cells buzzing with implications. Clara had known something, seen something, and it had cost her life. The cracked mirror on the wall reflected Poirot's thoughtful face, distorted slightly by a web of fractures. He examined it closely, noticing a smudge on the glass, perhaps a fingerprint. Too smeared to be useful, but it suggested someone had touched it recently. Turning his attention to the high window, he pushed it open against the wind's resistance, peering out into the stormy night. The drop was sheer, 2 stories to the jagged rocks below, no ledge or ivy to climb. Impossible for entry or exit that way. The room's only door had been locked, and Grimshaw claimed only 2 keys existed. Poirot tested the lock mechanism, finding it sturdy but old, perhaps pickable by a skilled hand, or maybe a hidden passage, as in so many old English inns. He tapped the walls methodically, listening for hollow sounds. Behind the tapestry, depicting a medieval hunt, his knocks echoed differently. Hollow, resonant. With careful fingers, Poirot peeled back the tapestry, revealing a small panel in the woodwork, cleverly disguised by the grain. It swung open on silent hinges, exposing a narrow passageway dusty with disuse. A secret corridor! He shone the lantern inside, illuminating cobwebs and footprints in the dust. Recent ones, by the clarity. This explained the locked room mystery. The killer had entered and exited unseen. Poirot followed the passage a short way, finding it led downward, likely connecting to other parts of the inn. He marked the discovery in his mind, closing the panel for now. This clue was startling indeed. A hidden way that anyone familiar with the inn could have used. Grimshaw surely knew of it as innkeeper, but did the guests? Sir Reginald, with his obsession for the occult, might have researched the inn's history and uncovered such secrets. Returning to the main room, Poirot scanned the floorboards near the body. Amid the blood, a faint scuff mark caught his eye, as if something had been dragged. He followed it to the table, where the guttering candle stood. Beneath the table, partially hidden by the leg, lay a crumpled handkerchief, embroidered with the initials V.A. Victoria Ashford. Poirot picked it up with tweezers from his kit, noting a faint stain that could be blood or wine. The pearl earring now had a potential owner. Lady Victoria often wore pearls, he recalled from earlier observations. Was she the killer, or was this a plant to frame her? The web of deceit was thickening. As he wrapped up his search, a distant thud echoed from below, perhaps the group growing restless. Poirot extinguished the lantern briefly, plunging the room into darkness, and listened. The wind moaned through cracks, but no other sounds intruded. Satisfied for the moment, he relit the lantern and exited, locking the door behind him. Descending the stairs, he pondered the alibis anew. Sir Reginald in the library, but the secret passage might connect there. Lady Victoria in her room, conveniently close to the tower. Dr. Thorne in the dining hall, jotting notes, perhaps a cover for sneaking away. Amelia in the powder room, her shadow sighting possibly a diversion. And Grimshaw in the cellar, where the passage might end. Back in the parlour, the group looked up expectantly, their faces illuminated by the dying fire. Poirot resumed his position by the mantel, his expression inscrutable. "I have found anomalies," he announced, watching their reactions. Sir Reginald blustered, "Well, out with it, man." Lady Victoria's eyes narrowed. Dr. Thorne leaned forward, Amelia fidgeted, and Grimshaw remained stoic. Poirot revealed the handkerchief, holding it aloft. "This was near the body. Madame Ashford, it bears your initials," she gasped, colour draining from her face. "Impossible! I lost that days ago. Someone must have taken it." Her denial was swift, but Poirot noted the fear in her voice. He then mentioned the notebook, omitting details, and watched Sir Reginald shift uncomfortably. The entries had referenced arguments with V. Dr. Thorne interjected, "This proves nothing. Anyone could have planted it." But Poirot smiled faintly. "Ah, but the truth is in the layers, Doctor. And now, let us discuss the pearl earring found in the room." He produced it, and Lady Victoria touched her ear instinctively. Her matching one was missing. I must have dropped it earlier," she stammered. The group erupted in murmurs, accusations flying. Amelia pointed at Lady Victoria. "You were arguing with Sir Reginald. Maybe Clara overheard." Sir Reginald defended her weakly, while Dr. Thorne suggested Grimshaw's involvement. "As her husband, you had opportunity." Grimshaw growled. "I'd never harm my Clara." Poirot raised his hands for silence. The alibis crumble like old walls. The room was not truly locked. There is a secret passage. Gasps filled the room. Grimshaw feigned surprise, but Poirot saw through it. "You knew, Monsieur Grimshaw, and perhaps others did too." The innkeeper admitted reluctantly. "It's an old smuggler's tunnel from the 1700s, but I swear, I didn't use it tonight." The revelation shifted suspicions, each alibi now questionable. As the storm began to wane outside, the tension inside peaked, alliances fracturing under Poirot's probing. The night wore on, with Poirot piecing together motives. Lady Victoria's rivalry with Sir Reginald over a valuable artifact. Perhaps Clara had evidence of theft. Dr. Thorne's grant hinged on debunking the hauntings. But what if Clara knew of staged effects? Amelia's inheritance tied to the inn through family history, and Grimshaw's own grievances, whispers of Clara's unhappiness. The hidden clue had opened floodgates, and the killer's facade was cracking. With dawn approaching and revelations mounting, Poirot sensed the climax nearing. The inn's shadows hid more than ghosts. Human darkness ran deeper. Stay tuned for Chapter 5, where a second incident shakes the group and Poirot closes in on the truth. Chapter 5. The Second Shock. The Blackthorn Inn's parlour was a cauldron of suspicion, the air thick with unspoken accusations, as Hercule Poirot stood sentinel by the mantel, his eyes like twin searchlights cutting through the group's unease. Dawn was still hours away, the storm outside reduced to a sullen drizzle, but the tension within the old walls crackled like static. The revelation of the secret passage and the handkerchief bearing Lady Victoria's initials had set the guests on edge, their fragile composure fraying like the inn's ancient tapestries. Poirot had ordered them to remain together, a precaution to keep the killer under watch. But the strain was palpable. Sir Reginald's monocle glinted nervously. Lady Victoria's hands twisted her shawl into knots. Dr. Thorne's jaw clenched as he gripped his chair. Amelia's eyes darted like a frightened deer, and Elias Grimshaw stood apart, his face a mask of stoic grief. The fire had dwindled to embers, casting long shadows that seemed to mock their attempts at civility. Poirot was about to probe further into the handkerchief's origins, when a sudden crash shattered the silence, echoing from the direction of the dining hall. The group froze, eyes wide as if expecting Josiah's ghost to materialize. Amelia clutched her locket, whispering, "It's him. It's the curse," Dr. Thorne snapped. "Nonsense. It's probably a fallen tray." But his voice lacked conviction. Poirot raised a hand, his calm authority steadying them. "Remain here. I will investigate, with Monsieur Grimshaw's assistance." The innkeeper nodded reluctantly, grabbing his lantern, its light flickering as they moved toward the source of the noise. The others exchanged glances, none daring to disobey, though Lady Victoria's lips parted as if to protest before she thought better of it. The dining hall was a cavern of shadows, the long oak table still strewn with the remnants of dinner, half-empty wine glasses, congealed pheasant, and scattered cutlery glinting in the lantern's glow. The crash had come from the far end, where a heavy silver candelabra lay toppled on the floor, its candles scattered like broken bones. Poirot knelt, his gloved fingers tracing the candelabra's base, noting a dent that suggested force, not an accidental fall. "This was no mere mishap," he murmured. Grimshaw's eyes narrowed. "Kids may be sneaking about. Village boys sometimes dare each other to come near on Halloween." But Poirot shook his head. "No, this is deliberate. A distraction, or a message." His gaze swept the room, landing on a small door behind a tapestry, partially ajar. It led to the kitchen, he recalled, but also potentially to the cellar where Grimshaw claimed to have been. Poirot pushed the door open, revealing the kitchen's dim interior. Copper pots hanging like silent sentinels, a faint smell of herbs and grease. On the counter lay a butcher's knife, its blade gleaming as if recently cleaned, though a faint reddish smear lingered near the handle. "Curieux," Poirot said, wrapping the knife in a cloth for later examination. "This may be our murder weapon, or a decoy." Grimshaw's face tightened, but he said nothing. As they turned to leave, a low groan came from the cellar stairs beyond the kitchen, a sound so human it sent a chill down even Poirot's spine. "Quickly," he ordered, descending the narrow steps, Grimshaw trailing behind. The cellar was a maze of barrels and crates, damp stone walls glistening in the lantern's light. The groan came again, weaker now, from behind a stack of wine casks. Poirot rounded the corner and stopped short. There, sprawled on the cold floor, was a man, Thomas Reed. the inn's handyman, whom Poirot had glimpsed earlier tending the grounds. His face was ashen, blood trickling from a gash on his temple, his eyes fluttering as he struggled to stay conscious. "Monsieur Reed," Poirot said, kneeling beside him. "What happened?" Reed's voice was a rasp. "Someone hit me. Didn't see who. Heard a woman's voice arguing. Then nothing." He slumped, unconscious, before he could say more. Poirot examined the wound. A blunt strike, not fatal, but meant to incapacitate. Nearby lay a heavy iron wrench, its end stained with blood. "Another attack," Poirot said, his voice grim. "The killer grows bold, or desperate." Grimshaw's hands shook as he helped lift Reed onto a crate, muttering, "This place'll kill us all." Poirot ignored the melodrama, his mind racing. A woman's voice? Clara? Or someone else? The timing suggested this attack coincided with the candelabra's fall, a calculated move to draw attention elsewhere. He instructed Grimshaw to fetch brandy and bandages from the kitchen, then carefully collected the wrench, wrapping it alongside the knife. Evidence was mounting, but so was the chaos. Returning to the parlour with Grimshaw, who supported a dazed Reed, Poirot faced a barrage of questions. "What was that noise?" Sir Reginald demanded, his voice edged with panic. Lady Victoria's eyes flicked to Reed, her expression unreadable. Dr. Thorne rose, offering to examine the handyman, his medical training overriding his skepticism. "Concussion likely," he diagnosed after a quick check. "He'll live, but he needs rest." Amelia, pale as moonlight, whispered, "Is it connected to Clara?" Poirot's gaze was steely. "Oui, mademoiselle. This is no coincidence. Someone wishes to silence those who know too much." He revealed the wrench and the knife, holding them up for the group to see, though he kept their origins vague. "These were found near the second incident. Does anyone recognize them?" Silence followed, but Poirot noted Sir Reginald's quick glance at Lady Victoria, who stared at the knife with a flicker of recognition before masking it. Grimshaw claimed the wrench was from his toolbox, but swore it had been locked away. "Someone's been in my things," he growled, his eyes darting to the group. Poirot pressed further, asking about arguments heard that night. No one admitted to anything, but the tension was a living thing, coiling tighter with each denial. Poirot paced, his voice low and deliberate. "2 attacks in one night, 1 fatal, 1 not. The killer is among us, and they fear exposure." Monsieur Reed heard a woman's voice. Whose was it? He let the question hang, watching Lady Victoria's fingers tighten on her shawl, Amelia's breath catch, and the men's faces harden. Dr. Thorne broke the silence, his tone sharp. "This is getting out of hand, Poirot. We need to search the inn. Find whoever's doing this before they strike again." Sir Reginald nodded, but his enthusiasm was forced, his eyes avoiding the others. Poirot agreed, but with a caveat. "We search together, under my direction. No one moves alone." As they prepared to comb the inn, Poirot's mind churned through the new clues. Reed's attack suggested he had witnessed something. Perhaps Clara's murder, or an argument that led to it. The woman's voice could implicate Lady Victoria or Amelia, but the men's motives were equally murky. Sir Reginald's debts, Thorne's obsession with his reputation, Grimshaw's hidden pain. The knife and wrench were deliberate, left to confuse or accuse. And the candelabra's fall, was it a diversion or a signal? The inn's labyrinthine layout, with its passages and secrets, was a perfect stage for deception, and Poirot knew the killer was counting on it. The group rose, uneasy but resolute as Poirot outlined the search plan. The inn's shadows seemed to deepen, the air heavy with the promise of more revelations. Dawn was close, but the darkness of human intent loomed larger. Stay tuned for Chapter 6, where the search uncovers a hidden truth and Poirot's suspicions sharpen. Chapter 6. The Search and the Secret. The Blackthorn Inn seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy as Hercule Poirot led the group from the parlour, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous halls. The drizzle outside had softened to a faint patter, but the air inside remained heavy, laden with suspicion and the lingering scent of blood. Thomas Reed, the handyman, had been settled on a parlour sofa with a bandage on his temple, his breathing steady but weak under Dr. Thorne's watchful eye. Poirot had insisted on a group search of the inn to uncover any traces of the killer's movements, and though the guests complied, their reluctance was palpable. Sir Reginald's forced bravado, Lady Victoria's tight-lipped composure, Amelia's nervous glances, and Elias Grimshaw's brooding silence spoke of secrets yet to be unearthed. Poirot carried the wrapped knife and wrench in his coat, their weight a reminder of the violence that stalked the night. He divided the group into pairs to cover more ground, ensuring no one was alone with the killer. "Monsieur Grimshaw, you and I will search the upper floors," Poirot declared, his tone brooking no argument. "Lady Victoria, you pair with Dr. Thorne to check the ground floor and kitchen. Mademoiselle Amelia, stay with Sir Reginald in the library and cellars. No one strays, and report anything unusual immediately." The group nodded, their faces taut and dispersed like reluctant soldiers into battle. Poirot's keen eyes missed nothing. Lady Victoria's fleeting grimace at being paired with Thorne, Sir Reginald's nervous adjustment of his monocle, and Amelia's hesitant step toward the library. The inn's labyrinthine layout was both ally and enemy, hiding clues and dangers in equal measure. Poirot and Grimshaw climbed the grand staircase, the lantern casting jagged shadows on the walls where portraits of long-dead innkeepers seemed to watch their progress. The upper floors were a maze of narrow corridors, locked guest rooms, and dusty alcoves. Poirot began with the rooms nearest the tower, testing each door. Most were locked, their keys on Grimshaw's ring, but one door, labelled linen closet, yielded to a gentle push. Inside, shelves of folded sheets were askew, and a faint scent of lavender mingled with something sharper, lamp oil. Poirot's gloved fingers traced the floor, finding a small puddle of the substance near the back wall. "Monsieur Grimshaw, this oil, was it spilled recently?" The innkeeper frowned, peering at the stain. "Shouldn't be. We store oil in the cellar, not here." Poirot's moustache twitched. A trail of oil could mean arson, or a hasty escape through the secret passage nearby. They moved to the passage's hidden panel, which Poirot had discovered in the tower room. Grimshaw hesitated, his gaunt face tightening. "Didn't think anyone used these old tunnels anymore," he muttered. But Poirot noted the lie in his eyes. The passage was cramped, its stone walls slick with damp, and the lantern revealed more footprints, two distinct sets, one heavy and booted, the other lighter, perhaps a woman's. They followed the tunnel downward, emerging behind a tapestry in the library, where Amelia and Sir Reginald were supposed to be searching. The room was empty, its shelves of occult tomes and spirit boards untouched, but a single book lay open, on a table, The Mysteries of Blackthorn, its pages marked with a ribbon. Poirot flipped to the marked page, reading a passage about a hidden compartment in the inn's west wing, used by smugglers to stash contraband. "Most interesting," he murmured, suspecting the killer might be using the inn's secrets to their advantage. Meanwhile, Lady Victoria and Dr. Thorne scoured the ground floor, their footsteps sharp against the flagstones. The kitchen revealed little new, save for a missing knife from the block, likely the one Poirot had found. Thorne's impatience grew, his voice sharp as he examined the pantry. "This is a waste of time, Poirot. The killer's probably laughing at us." Lady Victoria, however, paused at the back door, which led to the grounds. It was unlatched, a faint mud smear on the threshold. "Someone's been out here," she said, her voice low. Thorne scoffed, but his eyes lingered on the mud, his skepticism wavering. They reported the find to Poirot when the groups reconvened, and he noted the detail. Mud meant someone had ventured outside, despite the storm. In the library, Amelia and Sir Reginald rejoined the group, claiming they'd found nothing but dusty books. Poirot's gaze lingered on Amelia's hands, which trembled slightly, and Sir Reginald's flushed face, as if he'd been exerting himself. "You were not in the cellar as instructed?" Poirot asked, his tone mild but piercing. Sir Reginald blustered. "We got distracted by the books. Fascinating stuff, you know." Amelia nodded too quickly, her locket now visible again, its clasp loose. Poirot made a mental note to investigate their absence further. The search had yielded clues. The oil, the footprints, the unlatched door, the book. But the most startling discovery came as they gathered in the foyer. Grimshaw, growing increasingly agitated, led Poirot to the west wing, where the book had mentioned a hidden compartment. Behind a faded portrait of a stern woman, Poirot found a loose panel, which opened to reveal a small cache. Inside was a velvet pouch containing a ruby-encrusted amulet, its chain broken, and a folded letter. The letter, in Clara's handwriting, read, "I saw you take it. Return it, or I tell all." The amulet matched Sir Reginald's description of his prized artifact, rumoured to be cursed. Poirot held it up, watching the group's reactions. Sir Reginald's face drained of colour, Lady Victoria's eyes widened, and Dr. Thorne's brow furrowed as if calculating. Amelia gasped, "That's the amulet Sir Reginald showed us." Grimshaw's fists clenched, his voice low. "Clara found that she was always poking around." Poirot's mind raced. Clara had uncovered a theft, likely Sir Reginald's, and threatened to expose it. The amulet was motive, its value immense, its curse a convenient cover. But who else knew? Lady Victoria, a rival collector, might have coveted it. Dr. Thorne could have seen it as a threat to his rationalist crusade. Amelia's family ties to the inn hinted at deeper knowledge. And Grimshaw, had he helped his wife or betrayed her? The unlatched door and muddy smear suggested someone had fled outside, perhaps to hide evidence. The oil spill hinted at a plan yet to unfold. As the group returned to the parlour, Poirot announced, "We have a motive, greed or fear of exposure. The amulet is key, and someone here knows why Clara died for it." Accusations flared. "Sir," Reginald pointed at Lady Victoria, claiming she'd tried to buy the amulet. She retorted that he'd stolen it first. Thorne accused Grimshaw of complicity. Amelia remained silent, her eyes fixed on the floor. Poirot silenced them with a raised hand. "Enough. The truth is close, but we must be vigilant. The killer may strike again to protect their secret." The inn's walls seemed to close in, the dawn's faint light offering no comfort. The amulet gleamed in Poirot's hand, a beacon of greed and death. As the group sat, wary of each other, a faint creak from above suggested the inn was not done revealing its secrets. Stay tuned for Chapter 7, where Poirot confronts a suspect and a ghostly disturbance tests their nerves. Chapter 7. The Confrontation and the Phantom. The Blackthorn Inn's parlour was a crucible of tension, the air thick with the weight of unspoken truths, as Hercule Poirot held the ruby-encrusted amulet aloft, its facets catching the dim firelight like drops of blood. The group sat in uneasy silence, their eyes darting between the amulet and each other, the weight of Clara's murder and Thomas Reed's attack pressing down like the inn's ancient beams. The storm had faded to a restless murmur outside, But the darkness within seemed to deepen, as if the inn itself conspired to shield the killer. Poirot's gaze was unrelenting, his voice a quiet blade as he began. This amulet, mes amis, is no mere trinket. It is the heart of our mystery, a motive for murder. And now we must peel back the lies. He turned to Sir Reginald, whose florid face glistened with sweat despite the chill. Monsieur Hawthorne, you claimed this amulet was yours, yet Clara's note suggests theft. Explain. Sir Reginald's monocle trembled as he sputtered. I acquired it fairly, Poirot. A private sale, perfectly legal. Clara must have misunderstood. She was always meddling, poking into my affairs. His voice cracked, betraying desperation. Poirot's eyes narrowed, and yet her note threatens exposure. What did she know? Sir Reginald's hands fumbled with his jacket, his bravado crumbling. She thought I'd taken it from a rival collector. Nonsense! I paid a fortune for it. But his eyes slid toward Lady Victoria, who sat rigid, her crimson gown a stark contrast to her ashen face. Poirot pivoted to her. Madame Ashford, you are no stranger to rare artifacts. Did you know of this amulet's origins? Her lips parted, then closed, her composure a fragile mask. I knew Reginald coveted it, she said, her voice measured. We discussed it weeks ago. He boasted of outbidding me at an auction, but I had no part in Clara's death. Her fingers brushed her ear, where the missing pearl earring's twin should have been, and Poirot noted the gesture. The handkerchief and earring tied her to the tower room, yet her denial was smooth, too smooth perhaps. Before he could press further, a sharp creak echoed from the ceiling, followed by a low, mournful wail that seemed to seep from the walls. Amelia gasped, her locket slipping from her fingers to the floor. It's Josiah, she whispered, her voice trembling. Dr. Thorne scoffed, but his knuckles whitened on his chair. Acoustics, nothing more, he muttered, though his eyes darted upward. Grimshaw, standing by the door, growled. Told you this place is cursed. Poirot raised a hand for silence, his senses alert. No, this is no ghost. Someone seeks to unsettle us, he gestured to Grimshaw. Lead us to the source, monsieur. The group followed Poirot and Grimshaw upstairs, their lanterns casting flickering beams across the corridor. The sound had come from the west wing, near the portrait where the amulet's hiding place was found. As they approached, the wail grew louder, then abruptly stopped, replaced by a faint tapping, like fingers on glass. Poirot's heart quickened, not from fear, but from the certainty that this was no supernatural trick. They reached a locked door marked Guest Suite, and Grimshaw fumbled with his keys, his hands unsteady. The door opened to reveal a lavish room, its velvet drapes drawn tight, a four-poster bed untouched, and a large window rattling in its frame. The tapping came from there, and Poirot strode forward, pulling back the drapes. Outside, a branch scraped against the glass, driven by a sudden gust, but Poirot's eyes caught something else. A smudge on the window pane, shaped like a handprint, too large for Clara or Amelia. Curieux, he murmured, noting its clarity despite the rain. Inside, a small table held a spilled glass of wine, its stain fresh on the carpet. Someone was here, he said, turning to the group. This room is unoccupied, oui? Grimshaw nodded. No guests booked here tonight. Yet the wine suggested recent presence, and Poirot's mind flashed to the unlatched back door and muddy smear from the earlier search. He confronted the group, his voice sharp. Who was in this room? Speak now, or the truth will be harder to extract. Silence met him, but Sir Reginald's flush deepened, and Lady Victoria's gaze flicked to the floor. Dr. Thorne stepped forward, his tone defiant. This is a distraction, Poirot. The killer's playing games, and you're falling for it. But Poirot ignored him, bending to examine the carpet. Tucked beneath the table's edge was a single cufflink, gold with the initials R.H., Sir Reginald Hawthorne. Poirot held it up, and Sir Reginald blanched. That's mine, yes, but I lost it days ago. Someone's framing me. His voice rose, almost a shout, and Amelia shrank back, her eyes wide. Poirot's gaze shifted to Grimshaw. "Monsieur, you know every corner of this inn. Was this room used tonight?" The innkeeper's jaw tightened. "I don't watch every door. Clara handled the rooms. She might have checked it." His voice broke on her name, but Poirot detected a flicker of evasion. The wail, the tapping, the cufflink, all pointed to a staged disturbance, perhaps to lure them away from the parlour or to plant more false clues. Poirot's mind raced. The amulet tied Sir Reginald and Lady Victoria to Clara's death. But the cufflink was too convenient, like the handkerchief. Was the killer framing multiple suspects to muddy the waters? He led the group back to the parlour, insisting they remain together. "The killer seeks to manipulate us," he said, his voice steady. "This phantom is human, and their mistakes are mounting." He placed the cufflink beside the amulet, letting the group see the growing pile of evidence. Lady Victoria's composure cracked, her voice sharp. "You're accusing us all, Poirot. This is madness." Dr. Thorne nodded, his skepticism returning. "You're chasing shadows when we should be locking doors and calling the police." But the storm had cut the phone lines, and the nearest village was miles away. Amelia whispered, "What if it's not one of us? What if it's someone else?" Her fear of the supernatural lingered, but Poirot dismissed it. "The living are far more dangerous than the dead, mademoiselle." As they settled uneasily, Poirot's thoughts turned to the handprint and wine spill. The killer was active, moving through the inn, planting clues to confuse or accuse. Sir Reginald's cufflink suggested he'd been in the suite, perhaps meeting someone, Lady Victoria, or even Clara. Grimshaw's knowledge of the inn made him a suspect, but his grief seemed genuine. Dr. Thorne's rationalism could mask a colder motive, and Amelia's quiet fear might hide knowledge of her family's ties to the inn. The wail could have been a recording, a trick to evoke the ghost story, but the handprint was real, and Poirot suspected it belonged to the killer, or an accomplice. The fire sputtered, casting long shadows as the group waited, their trust in each other eroding. Poirot knew the next move was critical. The killer was growing reckless, and another strike was imminent. The inn's secrets were unraveling, but the truth remained just out of reach. Stay tuned for Chapter 8, where Poirot sets a trap and the killer's mask begins to slip. Chapter 8. The trap is set. The Blackthorn Inn's parlour was a pressure cooker of fear and suspicion, the dying embers of the fire casting a feeble glow on the faces of the gathered guests. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his presence a beacon of calm amidst the storm of distrust. The ruby amulet and Sir Reginald's cufflink lay on the mantel, silent accusations that fueled the group's unease. The eerie wail and the stage scene in the guest suite had heightened their nerves, each guest eyeing the others as if expecting a knife to flash from the shadows. Poirot's little grey cells worked tirelessly, piecing together the mosaic of clues. The secret passage, the planted handkerchief, the amulet's theft, and now the cufflink and handprint. The killer was weaving a web of misdirection, but Poirot sensed they were growing careless, their moves bolder with each passing hour. He decided it was time to force their hand. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice steady as he paced before the group. "The killer believes they can outwit us with tricks and distractions, but Hercule Poirot is not so easily deceived. Tonight, we set a trap to draw them out." The guests stirred, their expressions a mix of curiosity and dread. Sir Reginald, his monocle fogging with nervous sweat, stammered, "A trap? What madness is this, Poirot?" Lady Victoria's eyes narrowed, her fingers stilling on her shawl. Dr. Thorne leaned forward, his skepticism tinged with intrigue. "And how do you propose to catch a murderer in this godforsaken place?" Amelia clutched her locket, her voice a whisper. "What if they come for us next?" Elias Grimshaw, standing by the door, said nothing, his gaunt face unreadable but his eyes sharp with something Poirot couldn't yet name. Poirot raised a hand for silence. "The killer seeks to protect their secret, the amulet, and what it represents. I will announce that I have uncovered a critical piece of evidence, one that points directly to the murderer. This will provoke them to act, to retrieve or destroy it before I can reveal all." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "But fear not, I will ensure our safety. We remain together, and I have a plan." He instructed Grimshaw to fetch a small wooden box from the library, claiming it contained this evidence. In truth, it was empty, a prop to lure the killer. Grimshaw returned with the box, his movements reluctant, and Poirot placed it prominently on the mantel beside the amulet and cufflink, ensuring all eyes were drawn to it. "Now," Poirot continued, "we will retire to the dining hall, where the light is better and the exits are few. We stay as one until dawn, when help can be summoned from the village." The group complied, their footsteps heavy as they moved to the dining hall, the table still cluttered with the remnants of their ill-fated dinner. Poirot positioned himself near the door, his eyes never leaving the group. He had instructed Grimshaw to lock all external doors, though he suspected the killer might use the secret passages. To test this, he had subtly loosened a floorboard in the library's passage entrance, hoping to hear any movement. As they settled, Poirot began to sow seeds of doubt, probing deeper into motives. "Monsieur Hawthorne," he said, turning to Sir Reginald, "the amulet's theft suggests a financial motive. Your debts are no secret. Did Clara threaten to expose your dealings?" Sir Reginald's face reddened. "How dare you? I told you, I bought it legally." "Clara was mistaken." But his voice shook, and Poirot noted Lady Victoria's subtle nod, as if confirming a shared secret. He turned to her next. "Madame, your rivalry with Sir Reginald is well known. Did you seek the amulet for yourself or to ruin him?" She laughed, a brittle sound. "I'm no thief, Poirot. If I wanted it, I'd have outbid him openly." Yet her hand brushed her ear, where the pearl earring's absence still nagged at Poirot. Dr. Thorne, impatient, interjected. "This is pointless. The killer's probably some vagrant who slipped in during the storm." But Poirot shook his head. "Non, docteur. The attacks are too precise, too personal. Someone here knows the inn's secrets." He glanced at Amelia, whose locket gleamed in the candlelight. "Mademoiselle, your family owned this inn once, did they not? What do you know of its history?" Amelia flinched, her voice small. "My great-uncle sold it years ago. I only came because Papa thought it'd be educational. I didn't know Clara." Her denial was fervent, but Poirot saw her fingers tighten on the locket, as if it held more than sentimental value. Grimshaw, silent until now, spoke up. "Clara knew too much, always did. She'd listen at doors, read old records. Maybe she found something she shouldn't." His voice was low, almost a confession, but Poirot sensed he was holding back. The detective's trap was set, but he needed a catalyst. He announced, "The box contains a document Clara hid, naming her killer. I will open it at dawn, when we are safe." The lie was calculated, and he watched the group's reactions. Sir Reginald's eyes widened. Lady Victoria's lips tightened. Dr. Thorne's brow furrowed, Amelia's breath hitched, and Grimshaw's hands clenched. Minutes later, a faint creak came from the library, the loosened floorboard betraying movement. Poirot's heart quickened, but he kept his face impassive. "Stay here," he whispered, slipping into the hall with Grimshaw, lantern in hand. They reached the library, where the tapestry concealing the passage hung slightly askew. Poirot lifted it, revealing the open panel, and heard a soft shuffle retreating down the tunnel. "Quickly!" he hissed, entering the passage with Grimshaw behind. The narrow corridor was suffocating, the air thick with dust and secrets. At the far end, near the tower room, Poirot glimpsed a figure, tall, cloaked in shadow, slipping through another hidden panel. He pursued, but the figure vanished, leaving only a dropped object, a small vial, empty but smelling faintly of laudanum, a sedative. Poirot returned to the dining hall, the vial in his pocket, his mind racing. Laudanum could explain Reed's unconsciousness, suggesting the attack was premeditated, not spontaneous. The figure's height ruled out Amelia, but fit Sir Reginald, Dr. Thorne, or Grimshaw. Or was it Lady Victoria, her elegance masking strength? The box remained untouched on the mantel, but the killer had taken the bait, moving to intercept the supposed evidence. Poirot addressed the group, his voice sharp. "Someone among us entered the passage just now. The net tightens, mes amis." Accusations erupted. Sir Reginald blamed Grimshaw, Lady Victoria accused Thorne of sneaking about, and Amelia sobbed, "I just want this to end." The dining hall's candles flickered, casting distorted shadows as the group's unity fractured further. Poirot knew the killer was desperate, their mask slipping with each misstep. The vial was a new piece of the puzzle, hinting at a calculated mind. But the motive remained elusive. Was it greed, revenge, or fear of exposure? The inn's dark history whispered in every creak, but Poirot trusted only the evidence. Dawn was near, but the final unmasking was closer still. The night held one more twist, and Poirot was ready to seize it. Stay tuned for Chapter 9, where a confession emerges and the killer's identity comes into focus. If you're enjoying this chilling tale, hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Chapter 9. The Confession and the Cornered. The dining hall of the Blackthorn Inn was a battlefield of frayed nerves, the flickering candles casting long, accusing shadows across the faces of the gathered guests. Hercule Poirot stood by the table, the wooden box, ruby amulet, cufflink, and now the laudanum vial arranged before him like pieces on a chessboard. The creak in the library passage had confirmed his trap's success. The killer had moved, desperate to silence the supposed evidence in the box. The air was thick with dread, the faint patter of rain outside a mocking reminder of their isolation. Poirot's eyes, sharp and unrelenting, scanned the group. Sir Reginald, his face flushed and monocle dangling. Lady Victoria, her elegance strained by fear. Dr. Thorne, his scepticism now a brittle shield. Amelia, her locket clutched like a lifeline. And Elias Grimshaw, whose stoic mask hid a storm of emotion. The killer was cornered, and Poirot was ready to strike. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice a quiet thunder. "The net closes. The laudanum vial, found in the passage, tells me the attack on Monsieur Reed was no impulse. It was planned. Someone here sought to silence him, as they silenced Clara. And now they fear the truth in this box." He tapped the empty box, watching their reactions. Sir Reginald's hands shook. Lady Victoria's lips tightened. Dr. Thorne's eyes narrowed. Amelia's breath hitched, and Grimshaw's gaze dropped to the floor. Poirot continued, "But the truth is not in the box. It is in your secrets. One of you will break, and I believe that moment is now." He turned to Amelia, whose trembling had grown pronounced, her wide eyes glistening with tears. "Mademoiselle Blackwood, your locket. Why do you guard it so fiercely? Does it hold a clue to Clara's death?" Amelia's hand flew to the locket, her voice breaking. It's all I have of my mother. It's nothing to do with this." But her panic was too raw, her denial too quick. Poirot stepped closer, his tone gentle but probing. "You mentioned your family's history with this inn. Did Clara know something about your inheritance, perhaps? Something worth killing for?" Amelia sobbed, shaking her head. "No! I didn't hurt her, but I heard her arguing with someone that night in the kitchen. I didn't see who. It was a man's voice, angry, about money." The room erupted in murmurs. Sir Reginald pointed at Grimshaw. "You, innkeeper, you were in debt. Clara mentioned it once. Did she threaten to expose you?" Grimshaw's face darkened, his fists clenching. "Don't you dare, Hawthorne. I loved my Clara. I'd never harm her." But his voice cracked, and Poirot caught the flicker of guilt. Not for murder, perhaps, but for something else. He shifted to Dr. Thorne. "Doctor, your grant depends on debunking the inn's hauntings. Did Clara's knowledge of staged effects threaten your work?" Thorne's jaw tightened. "Absurd. I'm here for science, not murder. Clara was irrelevant to me." yet his fingers drummed nervously, betraying unease. Lady Victoria spoke up, her voice sharp. "Enough of this, Poirot. You're stirring up lies. That handkerchief was planted. I told you I lost it days ago." Poirot held up the pearl earring, its gleam accusing. "And this, madame, found in the tower room where Clara died. You wear its twin." Her hand flew to her ear, colour draining from her face. I must have dropped it earlier, in the hall. Someone took it." Her composure was unravelling, and Poirot pressed harder. "Or did you drop it fleeing the scene, after using the passage to escape?" Before she could respond, Grimshaw stepped forward, his voice raw. "Stop this! I can't stay silent no more." The group froze, eyes locked on the innkeeper. Clara, she knew things. She found papers in the cellar, old deeds tying this in to the Blackwood family, Amelia's family. They showed the sale was crooked, that my grandfather cheated Amelia's great-uncle. Clara wanted to tell her, give her what's rightfully hers. I told her to keep quiet. It'd ruin us. His voice broke, tears welling. "I didn't kill her, Poirot, I swear. But I was in the cellar when she died. I heard her scream and I ran, but I was too late." Amelia gasped, her locket falling open to reveal a faded photograph of a woman resembling her. "My great-uncle, he always said the inn was stolen. Is that why she died?" Poirot's eyes softened, but his mind was sharp. Grimshaw's confession explained Clara's note and her poking around, but not the murder. "Monsieur Grimshaw, your silence protected your family's legacy, but it cost Clara her life." "Who did she argue with in the kitchen as Mademoiselle heard?" Grimshaw shook his head. "I don't know. I was fetching wine, like I said." Poirot turned to Sir Reginald, whose flush had turned sickly. "Monsieur Hawthorne, the amulet was stolen, oui? Clara's note confirms it. Did she confront you? And did you silence her?" Sir Reginald's monocle dropped, his voice a rasp. I took it from a dealer, yes, but I paid him later. Clara overheard me boasting about it. She threatened to tell the authorities. I argued with her in the kitchen, told her to stay out of it. But I didn't kill her." His eyes darted to Lady Victoria, as if seeking rescue. She glared back, her voice icy. "Don't drag me into your mess, Reginald. I warned you that amulet would bring trouble." Poirot's mind raced. Sir Reginald's admission tied him to Clara's argument, but the laudanum vial and the passage suggested a colder plan. He addressed the group. The killer used the passage, the laudanum, and planted clues to frame others. Lady Victoria's handkerchief, Sir Reginald's cufflink, but they miscalculated. The handprint on the window was too large for a woman, ruling out Madame Ashford and Mademoiselle Blackwood. He paused, watching Dr. Thorne and Grimshaw. "Doctor, your rationalism hides a temper. Did Clara's knowledge threaten your career?" Thorne's eyes flashed. "I told you she was nothing to me." But his voice was strained, his hands clenched. Poirot's trap had worked. The confession had exposed motives, but the killer was still hidden, their desperation growing. He announced, "The box will be opened now, in your presence. Let us see who reacts." He moved to the box, his movements deliberate, watching their faces. As he lifted the lid, revealing its emptiness, a loud thud came from the kitchen, a door slamming shut. Poirot spun, shouting, "To the kitchen now!" The group rushed after him, finding the back door swinging open, fresh mud tracks leading into the night. The killer had fled, but Poirot knew they couldn't go far. The inn's secrets were spilling like blood, and the killer's mask was nearly off. Dawn was breaking, casting a grey light over the truth. Stay tuned for Chapter 10, where Poirot pursues the culprit and the final revelation unmasks the murderer. If you're gripped by this tale, hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything to us. Chapter 10. The Unmasking. The Blackthorn Inn stood silent under the grey dawn, its ancient walls bathed in a pallid light that did little to dispel the shadows of the night's horrors. The dining hall was a tableau of strained faces, as Hercule Poirot led the group back from the kitchen, where the slamming door and fresh mud tracks had revealed the killer's desperate flight. The wooden box, now open and empty on the table, had served its purpose, flushing the murderer into the open. Sir Reginald Hawthorne's bluster had collapsed into nervous twitches. Lady Victoria Ashford's elegance was frayed by fear. Dr. Elias Thorne's rational facade cracked under pressure. Amelia Blackwood's tear-streaked face betrayed her terror, and Elias Grimshaw's stoic grief masked a deeper turmoil. Poirot's little grey cells had woven the clues together. The secret passage, the laudanum vial, the planted handkerchief and cufflink, the stolen amulet, Clara's note, and the handprint, into a tapestry of deceit. Now, with the killer's escape attempt thwarted by the inn's isolation, Poirot was ready to unveil the truth. "Mes amis," he began, his voice a calm beacon in the tense room. "The murderer is among us, and their mask falls now. Clara Grimshaw's death was no ghostly act, but a calculated crime rooted in greed, fear, and betrayal. Let us unravel the threads." He paced before the group, the amulet, cufflink, handkerchief, and vial laid out like evidence in a courtroom. Clara was killed in the tower room, her throat slashed with a butcher's knife, her body left in a locked chamber. The secret passage explains the killer's entry and exit, but the motive lies in what Clara knew, the amulet's theft, and the inn's hidden history. Poirot turned to Sir Reginald, whose monocle hung uselessly from his jacket. "Monsieur Hawthorne, you admitted arguing with Clara about the amulet, which you stole from a dealer. Her note threatened to expose you, endangering your reputation and finances. Your cufflink in the guest suite suggests you were there, perhaps planning further deception." Sir Reginald sputtered. "I argued, yes, but I didn't kill her. I was in the library when she screamed." Poirot nodded, his eyes narrowing. "Oui, but your cufflink was planted, as was Madame Ashford's handkerchief, to sow confusion." He faced Lady Victoria, her crimson gown now wrinkled, her composure shattered. "Madame, your pearl earring in the tower room and your handkerchief point to you, yet the handprint on the window, too large for a woman, clears you. You coveted the amulet, but you did not strike the blow." She exhaled, relief mingling with defiance. "I told you, Poirot, I'm no murderer." Poirot's gaze shifted to Amelia. "Mademoiselle Blackwood, your family's claim to the inn, revealed by Clara's notes, gave you motive. She wanted to restore your inheritance, but your fear and silence suggest you knew more than you admitted." Amelia sobbed. "I didn't hurt her. I only heard the argument, I swear." Dr. Thorne interjected, his voice sharp. "This is absurd, Poirot. You're chasing phantoms when the answer's obvious. Grimshaw's the only one with access to every part of this inn." Grimshaw growled. "I loved Clara. I'd never—" But Poirot cut him off, his voice rising. "Enough! The truth lies in the laudanum vial and the attack on Thomas Reed. The killer used the drug to silence him, knowing he overheard something damning. And the mud tracks from the kitchen door, they lead us to the final piece." Poirot's eyes locked on Dr. Thorne, whose face had paled, his hands gripping the table. "Doctor, you claim to be a man of science, yet your actions betray you. The handprint on the window matches your large hands. The laudanum vial, a tool of your medical trade, was used to subdue Reed. You were in the dining hall, close to the kitchen, when Clara was killed, and the mud on your boots, which you thought the rain would hide, matches the tracks from the back door." Thorne's eyes widened, his voice a snarl. "Preposterous. I was writing notes, not murdering anyone." Poirot stepped closer, relentless. "Non, docteur. Clara overheard you in the cellar, planning to stage a haunting to debunk the inn's legend for your grant. She threatened to expose your fraud, your career, your funding depended on this paper. You argued with her in the kitchen, as Amelia heard. When she went to the tower room to hide her notes, you followed through the passage, slashed her throat, and planted the handkerchief and earring to frame Lady Victoria. Later, you attacked Reed with the wrench when he saw you in the passage, using laudanum to ensure his silence. The cufflink was a final touch to implicate Sir Reginald, whose debts made him an easy target. The room was deathly silent. All eyes on Thorn. He rose, his face contorted with rage. "You have no proof, Poirot. This is all conjecture." But Poirot produced the vial, holding it up. "This laudanum, found in the passage where you fled, bears traces of your fingerprints. I checked them against your glass. And your boots, Doctor, are still wet with mud." Thorn lunged for the door, but Grimshaw, with surprising speed, blocked him, his grief now fury. "You killed my Clara," he roared, pinning Thorn until Poirot signalled for calm. Thorn collapsed into a chair, his defiance crumbling. I didn't mean to. She was going to ruin everything. I only wanted to scare her, but she fought back and I panicked." His confession spilled like poison, admitting to the murder, the attack on Reed, and the staged clues to confuse Poirot. The group stared, horrified, as the rational doctor revealed his desperate heart. Amelia wept. Sir Reginald cursed. Lady Victoria shook her head, and Grimshaw's shoulders sagged, his anger spent. Poirot's voice was quiet but firm. "The truth is revealed, mes amis. The inn's ghosts are but shadows of human greed and fear. Dr. Thorn, you will face justice when the authorities arrive." He instructed Grimshaw to bind Thorn's hands, and the group waited in stunned silence as dawn's light crept through the windows, banishing the night's terrors. The amulet's curse was a myth, but Clara's death was all too real. Driven by Thorn's ambition and panic, as the first rays illuminated the inn, Poirot reflected on the human heart's capacity for darkness. The Blackthorn Inn would stand, its secrets now laid bare, but its scars would linger. "Justice is served," he said, "but let us honour Clara by seeking truth in all things." The group nodded, their ordeal over, the killer unmasked. The tale of murder and mystery ends here, but the Blackthorn's shadows will haunt us always. If you've been gripped by this chilling journey, hit that subscribe button and comment your thoughts below. Your support means the world to us. Stay tuned for more tales of suspense and deduction.